In today's session, we will be discussing about what is an abstraction and what are the three models that are used in modeling as a design technique. So abstraction is the selective examination of certain aspects of a problem. It means, as I said you before, abstraction in the sense it is a briefing. Abstraction is the selective examination of certain aspects of a problem. The goal of abstraction is to isolate those aspects that are important for some purpose and suppress those aspects that are not important. So this is the main goal of abstraction. Abstraction in the sense it is briefing, that is it is the selective examination of certain aspects of a problem. In the sense, abstraction, the main goal of abstraction is to isolate the aspects that are important from those which are not that much important. This we call it as the abstraction. Next concept is the three models. So here we'll discuss about three models, that is class model, state model, and interaction model. So these are the three models that are used in the design technique. So class model represents the static structural data aspects of a system. Class diagrams express the class model. So class models in the sense they represent the static structural data aspects of a system. It means class model describes the structure of an object in a system. The class model describes its identity, relationship with the other objects, attributes of the object, and its operations. So all these things will be described by the class model. The goal of constructing the class model is to capture those concepts from the real world that are important to an application. So this is why the class diagrams are constructed. That is, the goal of constructing class model is to capture the concepts from the real world that are important to an application. Class diagrams usually express the class models. So how these class models are represented? They are represented by the class diagrams. Next, moving on to the next model, that is a state model. State model represents the temporal, behavioral, control aspects of a system. State diagram express the state model. Each state diagram shows the static and event sequences permitted in a system for one class of objects. So, state model represents the temporal, behavioral, control aspects of a system. Here, state model describes the aspects of an object that are concerned with time and sequence of operations. State diagram together with that they express the state model. State models are expressed by the state diagrams. So each state diagram shows the state and the event sequences permitted in a system for one class of objects. So in the state diagram, actions and events are the operations on object in the class model. So I repeat, state models, they represent the temporal, behavioral, control aspects of a system. In the sense, they describe the aspects of an object that are concerned with the time and sequencing of operations. So how the state models are expressed? They are expressed by the state diagrams. So each state diagram shows the states and event sequences those are permitted in a system for one class of objects. So actions and events in the state diagrams are the operations on object in the class model. Next, moving on to the interaction model. Interaction model represents the collaboration of individual objects, the interaction aspects of a system. Use cases, sequence diagrams, and activity diagrams document the interaction model. So, In the sense, interaction model, it represents the collaboration of objects, that is the interactions in the system. Interaction model represents the interaction in the system. It describes the interaction between the objects, that is how individual objects collaborate to achieve the behavior of the system as a whole. So use cases, sequence diagrams and activity diagrams document this interaction model. In the sense, we'll make use of use cases, sequence diagrams and activity diagrams to represent the interaction model. So for what we have discussed, that is abstraction. Abstraction in the sense, it is the selective examination of certain aspects of a problem, so that the abstraction isolate the aspects which are important from the aspects which are not that much important. Next, we discussed the three models, that is class model, state model and interaction model. Class model, it represents the static, structural, data aspects of a system, and these class models are represented by the class diagrams. Then moving on to the state model, they represent the temporal, behavioral, control aspects of a system, and these are represented by the state diagrams. Then moving on to the interaction model, they represent the collaboration of individual objects, that is they represent the interaction in the system. So these interactions, that is these interaction models are represented with the help of use cases, sequence diagrams and activity diagrams. That is we make use of the use cases, sequence diagrams and activity diagrams to represent the interaction model. Thank you.